Jonathan Ruanika is the name. Welcome to Young Profesh.
All right, here we go. Um, Welcome to my very first podcast. This is really exciting for me because I've been contemplating this idea of having a podcast that is lacking, right? So, this is me finally executing, focusing less on perfecting the podcast and trying to put my frame of mind in a zone of experimentation. I think we'll come back to that at some point, if not today, at in some other podcast episode. Putting your frame of mind less on executing, but more on experimentation. So anyway, this podcast is just gonna be about highlighting what this podcast is about, what are the issues that we'll be discussing, and more importantly, just giving you like a brief of the man behind the mic, my what type of background experience do I have, and how that could be helpful to you at some point. Okay, so the idea of this podcast came from the fact that I don't think there are a lot of podcasts for young professionals in an African context. Not saying there aren't any, I'm pretty sure there are. So I just haven't heard a lot. So this idea of just like more information, when I go on YouTube, the type of podcasts that I see are very non-African. Most of them are like based in the US and in the UK, and you'll see that the issues are slightly different, the opportunities are slightly different, and I think the framing of what you need to be considering when you're making your career moves, networking, building your personal brand can be more contextualized to an African context. So this is why this podcast here. We're going to be discussing a wide range of issues. So ideally, I'll be bringing in another individual, another person on every episode from different career backgrounds, from different professional experiences to share a few things about experienced and what they think might be helpful for a young professional in South Africa, in Zambia, and Zimbabwe, wherever you might be across the African continent. So, an example of those issues will be things like how to network, right? I promise you, it's still pretty vague for me. What I've learned is that networking at my level has proved to have the most fruitful relationships. I've noticed that when you walk into a room full of like CEOs and CFOs, it's very difficult for you to stand out firstly, and secondly to make an impression that is lasting for individuals that run multi-billion-dollar, billion rand companies. So my focus has been less on that and more about my peers. So if I go to a conference, of which I've had pleasure of the fortunes of attending many, like the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants Young Leadership Summit, when I did the South American Business Forum, at all those events, it's it's because the events bring together very exciting, very talented, high potential individuals. It's more likely that when you're speaking to your peer there, you're speaking to like a future CEO, a future partner, a future head of something, an entrepreneur, a future entrepreneur, a future game changer. And I've noticed that, but those are the most authentic relationships because you meet when you don't really have much to offer each other. So it's more authentic, you know. You just come together in this belief that you all have this great potential. At some point, you're going to realize it. You stay in touch, you become friends. And then, lo and behold, 5 years later, you hear, oh, one of your friends is a Schwartzman scholar. I often look at my network of individuals below the age of 30, and I know individuals that have started great businesses, people that have been awarded the top scholarship programs in the world. I know individuals that have worked in exciting projects, and it's what's interesting about all of those people is that I've met them before they started peaking. Anyway, and also another platform, maybe just still on the topic of networking, is how we also underutilize LinkedIn. I think in first world countries, LinkedIn is a big deal now. Like it's utilized efficiently and powerfully, but not so much in like South Africa, where I'm from. You'll be shocked. I actually have an upcoming interview with a top private equity firm, and how I got that interview was purely by filtering for that company in the search bar. After filtering for that company, looking up for individuals that I might relate to, I ended up finding a fellow chartered accountant as one of the employees, inboxing her, asking her what her job is about. I've studied this. How do I pivot into your space and stuff like that. Uh, Ended up having us connecting, and then her telling me that, you know what, we actually have a job post open, send your CV. You'll find LinkedIn has a varied options in how you can effectively utilize it. I think for LinkedIn, it does help if you are affiliated with a reputable organization. For example, I trained as a chartered accountant with the Big Four. So on my LinkedIn profile, that is clear. So I think other professionals find it very easy to relate to established brands. I think that's the one of the advantages of going to a top school or working for a top organization, is that uh, at the very beginning of the conversation, your personal brand is almost attached to your school's brand or to your organization's brand, and that sort of helps you in some way at the initial. So I think we will have one podcast where we speak about that, the power of the brand that's not even yours, and like the school's brand and your organization brand, and how you can actually utilize that going forward. Okay, so besides networking, we're gonna also be talking about careers. It's amazing, hey, that a lot of us actually make career decisions based on salary. So what makes the most money, and which is expected, right? Especially in an African context where financial freedom is a big deal. So right now I'm working. I'm doing a short stint in Australia, and the lowest wage here is extremely high. A train operator gets paid a ton of money, like when people do career choices here, they really consider things like, what will I be more compatible with, what will I be good at, because money is less of a differentiating factor than it'll be like in a South Africa, where you find that usually the top talent trains as doctors, lawyers, or chartered accountants, or as engineers, because it's almost as if those are like your only options to financial freedom. I think we'll also have an episode of why that's problematic, and how to like redefine how we choose careers, given those circumstances. How can we navigate that career decision? And also, we tend to do a lot of research. You find that you're in school right now, you're doing research for your assignment, you're doing research, you spend 4 years being taught how to research. But when you make a career decision, you don't research all the companies that have those positions. You don't look for employees in that position. You don't send emails to those employees asking, "Oh, how's a day in your life look like? What do you like about your job? what are the things you don't like about your job? When you make a career decision, you need to ask yourself, have you done the necessary research to really understand the career decision you're making? Often you find individuals leaving jobs after 6 to 8 months because that career pivot, you're like, oh, investment banking sounds so sexy. I want to do it. And it makes a lot of money. And then you pivot from, I don't know, maybe you're doing biochemical stuff. And then you find yourself in a career you don't even like, just because you just haven't researched enough. I think we underestimate the power of finding out more before choosing a career. Often it's like, this job will give me 50,000 more than the previous, and hence it's justified for me to leave. I think that's a very poor way of looking at it. But I think there's an underlying culture there about just general career choices and how we choose careers and the effort we put into ensuring that a career move is right for us. And we'll definitely have episodes about that and bring in people that can speak to their different professions and maybe the different career choices that you didn't even know you had. I remember when I met my girlfriend. She was a fashion designer, and when she was in corporate, she was a buyer. I did not know what that was. I did realize that the clothes we have in store, the merchandise we have in merchandise stores, they are actually individuals doing the quantitative side of things, looking at trends, identifying new trends, and putting the products to the shelf. So there's a whole lot of complicated science to that people actually go to school and study and become buyers. It's wild, eh? It's wild. So that's just an example of how there's when we speak of careers, it's more broader than you actually think. And then in general, we're going to be speaking a lot about information and access to information. I think that's important. To give you an example, I remember I did my high school in Zimbabwe, and what was consistent in Zimbabwe is that whether you went to a good school or you went to a bad school, often the quality of the education remained the same. So, like, you'll still go to a obviously education is a lot more wholesome than that. There are other things that maybe, but I'm just talking from an academic standpoint. You could go to a rural area and find kids achieving amazing marks there, regardless of their location. But often you find when after high school, it's only the children from like private schools that end up getting scholarships to go study abroad and stuff like that. And me and a few friends were trying to think like, why is it like that? Because often these scholarships that they give African scholars are often need-based scholarships. That have nothing to do with the fact that you went to a private school or not. It just came down for us to access to information. You'll find if you go to a private school in Zimbabwe, you'll have access to the best information, where to write your SATs, where are the scholarships. You probably have a former alumni from your high school that's probably studying there that can guide you through the process. I think that differentiating factor, especially in this example where education seems to be a constant, the differentiator becomes access to information. And this podcast hopefully will give individuals more information about the things that you can't Google, you know. Well, you probably can Google anything, but maybe this will help you focus. Maybe you're a victim of there's too much information, because that's the thing too, hey? Just too much information out there. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. Um, So, who am I and what has been my journey? Um, so, I studied accounting and finance at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein, South Africa. After that, I did 3 years of articles under the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, because you need to do that in order to qualify as a chartered accountant. In my second year of articles, I applied for the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship, and I got a scholarship to do my master's in development finance at the University of Cape Town's Graduate School of Business. And I think that those were pretty pivotal moments in my life, because I was doing I was qualifying as a CA training in an industry that I didn't feel like I was making an impact, and I was desperately looking for options to pivot into things that I thought I could offer more value, that could utilize my skill set a little bit better. So my master's in development finance allowed me to utilize my passion for finance, because I like finance, I like economics, I like business, I love African economics. Allowed me to pair my passion for finance with my passion for problem solving African problems. Try that contextualized problem solving that comes from that deep understanding of the African context that only an African can understand. So pairing that together gave me that degree. I was shocked that such a degree existed, but it did, and spent 2 years there. I'm about to submit my thesis, and hopefully graduate in the next coming months. But also more importantly, doing it via scholarship from the Mandela Rhodes Foundation was also a pivotal moment, because beyond just giving me money to pay for that expensive master's degree that I'll never have been able to afford, I think it cost as much as my entire first year salary. It gave me amazing leadership training. So the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship gives postgraduate scholarships to individuals that show leadership, entrepreneurship, and service to others. And I was exposed to scholars from across the African continent, Cameroon, Ghana, Nigeria. Listen, any African country, I have a couch to sleep on. That's for sure. And just having that deeper understanding of how our problems are similar, and how as Africans we are very similar, and we have the same issues, and we keep going through the same cycles. Like, you have this one country that got independence 60 years ago, went through a cycle of events, land reform, same issues, and then 40 years later you have a South Africa that got recently independence in 94. Then it's the same issues: land reform, integration of societies that were usually disintegrated. Obviously, apartheid was I think, a more extreme form. But the similarity of issues across Africa, you'll find that everything you think is unique that's happening within your country, Malawi or Botswana, has probably happened in another African country. It's completely insane how similar we are. And we actually don't see it in most cases. But anyway, so the Mandela Rhodes Foundation gave me leadership training, and that training of how to become just a more authentic person, an authentic leader. And I'll forever be grateful for that opportunity. So yeah, that's basically my journey. In university, I did a lot of debating. I think I was in 2 national semifinals. I don't remember now. I just remember that I didn't win anything. I also was in the SRC at the University of the Free State, and that was a very enriching experience in and of itself. Um, but yeah, so basically, that's what this podcast is about. Uh, Basically, that's the person behind the mic. And I hope in the next coming episodes we manage to share, listen. If you have any ideas that you want on upcoming episodes, feel free to email me on my contacts on the podcast info. And yeah, see you next week.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe. This is Jonathan Ruanika signing out.